Diabo Seto is in Rwanda ahead of the World Economic Forum.
She caught up with CEO of MTN Rwanda, Gunter Engling, and he tells her that there's no likelihood of a fine being imposed in Rwanda.
In Rwanda, we are very lucky, not just with our telecoms regulator, but also with our tax authorities and all government institutions. They are very reasonable. We do comply with all legislation, but the most important thing is that they are very consultative. They are very unlikely to issue random fines. They are more likely to write us a letter and say, these are our concerns. You have 3 weeks or 4 weeks to remedy them, or in most cases, just call us in for a conversation before we even get to that step. So in Rwanda, it's very unlikely that we'd ever have a situation as elsewhere because the relationships are good and it's a very consultative process.
That's very interesting. How big is your market share and the subscriber growth pattern since 1998? Can you just take me through the timeline?
MTN Rwanda started in around 1998. 1998 as the first mobile operator over here. We were also one of the first foreign companies to come after the genocide. Today, MTN in Rwanda is not really viewed as a foreign company. We are viewed as a local company. For most of that period, until around 2010, 2011, we were almost the sole mobile provider. In around 2011, competition started. We have 2 competitors now. Our market share is still around just above 50%. We today have more than 4 million customers, and that is in a population of 11 million. So we have the biggest customer base, and we are the only company that's really viewed as Rwandan. We take part in a lot of Rwandan activities too. We give around 1% of our profit after tax to the foundation, but we also take part in social activities, like last Saturday of a month, Umuganda, which is in Rwanda a mandatory thing for all citizens to do on that Saturday, cleaning the country, and as a corporate we take part in that too.
That's very interesting. I've heard about the Umuganda and I found it quite fascinating. Gunter, now that you are 50% market share, you enjoy 50% of market share and with 4 million subscriber base, and you only have 2 competitors, that makes you quite a dominant player in the market. How have you been able to keep up with the Rwandans' connectivity needs, especially because it's so digitally advanced, and the issue of the digital transformation and digitization is quite a big one in Rwanda?
In Rwanda, in a lot of ways, there's a lot of infrastructure that has been deployed over the years. If you, for instance, look at MTN Rwanda, we've deployed more than 1,000 kilometers of fiber. And this is a fairly small country. It's not as large as South Africa. It's a lot smaller. We're only one of 3 fiber deployers in the country. So there's a lot of fiber that's been deployed. We cover around 70% of the population in Rwanda with 3G, and 90% of the population with 2G. I think the other very important thing about Rwanda today is the pricing of telecom services is of the lowest on the African continent. So our average price of a voice call today is around 1.6 US cents a minute. And then when we look at data, our average cost per megabyte is about 0.3 US cents a megabyte. In comparison to South Africa, it's a lot cheaper. It's far cheaper over here today.
Let's talk about affordability once again and stretch it. You'll agree with me that digital connectivity still locks out a vast majority of Africans from an industry perspective. How can corporates attend to the needs of the customers while remaining viable and competitive?
When we look at digital connectivity, I tend to look at it in terms of 4 major pillars. The first pillar is the infrastructure. In that area, we have all the fiber, we have all the base stations. The government of Rwanda is very helpful in terms of policies. We've had a zero-rated customs and excise duties on all telecoms equipment for a number of years. So the infrastructure environment is really in place. The second main area we have when we look at this is pricing of ongoing data services. And once again, we've got some of the lowest pricing there is at 0.3 US cents per megabyte. That's extremely low. It is not as if that is not affordable. The third part of the ecosystem is the devices.
Yes.
And when we get to devices, it's one of the two areas where we have a problem in terms of this ecosystem. The average price of a bottom-end smartphone is around 30,000 Rwandan franc. And the average salary of a person living in a rural area that has a proper job might be between 50 and 80,000 Rwandan francs a month. So you can see that the cost of a smartphone is a major cost to the living standards of somebody that's in the rural areas. The easy question to ask is, well, why don't the corporates just subsidize it? The problem is at 0.3 US cents, you'll pay back forever on a subsidy. So we haven't yet gotten to the answer on how to get devices to people cheaper, but we're doing a lot of collaborative things with the government, Minister of ICT, Minister of Education. For instance, we've just launched in April a scheme whereby students can buy laptops at very discounted prices, where we provide the modems. One of the biggest banks provides the financing. Microsoft has reduced its licensing, and students can buy a laptop and pay it off over time. We have similar schemes where people can buy phones and just pay them off over time. But the cost of devices is still problematic. The last part of the ecosystem is the content. And in Rwanda, we have two challenges when it gets to content. The first challenge is that the older portion of the population, primary language is Kinyarwanda.
Okay.
And the amount of Kinyarwanda content available on the internet is not that great. So to get that portion of the population into the digital area, either one needs to make sure that English skills are largely upgraded, or one needs to do a big improvement in local language content. And the challenge is that Kinyarwanda is a language that is spoken by far fewer people globally than, for instance, Swahili. And that is on that side of the ecosystem probably the biggest challenge. So the two areas of the ecosystem that are directly under corporate control, the amount of infrastructure, the pricing for data, are probably the least problematic. It's the other parts of the ecosystem that need upliftment. Fortunately, the youth is English speaking and is good with technology. So as the youth grows up, the problem will go away.